I remember it being a lined piece of paper. I think it was the first time I had made a list of my life goals. From as long as I can remember, I've been, drilled into my head by my mother that the value of your life is defined by the impact you have on the lives of people around you. My parents started with 45 rupees, which today is less than $1, even back then was very little. And through hard work, we were very lucky that we've, moved up that ladder very quickly. That's not common. Most people in India work incredibly hard. Literally back-breaking work is what most people in our country are doing. And very few people are fortunate enough to see results from that hard work. I spent a year working in agriculture and living and working in rural India. And in that year, I observed the stark juxtaposition of people having mobile phones and access to products like Coke, but lacking fundamental basic services like water, electricity, healthcare, and schools. And I thought, wow, why do we live in the world and how do we live in a world where you have mobile phones and you have Coca-Cola, but we can't deliver electricity and education? There's something fundamentally wrong with this picture. And so it was taking loyalty and applying it in a completely different way to give value to consumers who are usually unseen and underserved, and creating for them a second wallet of points now they can actually use to improve their quality of life, to achieve their aspirations. So take someone like a member of ours, Pavan, who owns a small street food stall. So let's imagine Pavan, as usual, is going to his little neighborhood shop where he buys his groceries, where he buys rice, sugar, etc. for his family. And this time he noticed something different. He noticed this little blue M.Paani sign with a phone number. He missed calls the number, so he doesn't have to spend on that phone call. He gets a call back, enrolls in the program, he collects points by spending through M.Paani partners and through M.Paani merchants, saves those points, and uses those points to actually get things that can potentially change him and his family's life. For these small businesses, by becoming an M.Paani partner, they're actually able to modernize their business, and we actually give them tools on their mobile, data and analytics about their business, which otherwise there's no information about. The unseen are also unseen in terms of the fact that there's no data about them. They live in what we call a data dark world. And what that means is that suddenly, because there's no information about you, you don't get access to, fundamental services like insurance or loans. So today the impact is with loyalty, but what we're really doing is using loyalty as a gateway into data, to bringing all these people to be seen through data, and then using that data to build new products for them. I want to build things that shape the way the world thinks. We should live in a world where the system is fair. That if you work hard, you can win.
I wanted to talk more about what I'm going to call what is your why. And I'm going to talk a little bit about M.Paani, but I can talk really loudly. Okay, it works. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about M.Paani and a little bit about my own personal journey in launching this business, going overseas and coming back to India. But the center of this conversation between us today, I want it to be about why. What is your why? And I'm going to share a little bit about what my why is. In terms of kind of all the decisions I've made along the way that led me to this point, and why I started M.Paani, and what I use to kind of guide my professional journey going forward as well. So as mentioned in that short film, I was born in Pune. My parents started with 45 rupees, which often when people meet me is not what one would think of, given my accent, given that I've been very fortunate to go to Princeton and Cambridge and have had a very successful life, very much due to my parents and my background. And that's very anomalous in a country like me, but that's where my personal story started. And that kind of laid the groundwork for my professional journey and the personal choices I've made in life in general. So I started at a point where, you know, most people wouldn't expect the outcomes for me or my brother that we had. We got to go to university. My parents did not go to university. I went to university overseas. My mother went to university for the first time when she was over 40 years old, because that's when the first chance we had to even afford for her to go to school happened. And it would always have been a dream of hers. So at, you know, over 40 years of age, my mom went to university with 18-year-olds because it had been a dream of hers to get a degree. So growing up in that context was obviously one of a lot of pressure, obviously, to work hard and be successful, but it also set a base in a context that I came from a context that wasn't one of access, especially generally of opportunity. And I lived in a world and was seeing people around me, especially in India, where I'd spent kind of the first decade of my life, that most people in our country work very hard. For very few does that result in economic opportunity. So when I thought about my professional choices, it really became anchored in this story of my why for my life is going to be around doing things that kind of even the playing field. Because for whatever reason, despite the odds, we were very successful. But that is not true for everybody. And so once I had the opportunity to go to university, and you guys are, you know, in the best university, and one of the best universities in the world, you know, we are all in a position of privilege. And with that privilege comes responsibility. And so when I graduated, it was a big question for me as to what do I want to do? You know, much like I'm sure many of you will have or have had offers from investment banks and big jobs and big salaries, that was kind of the same opportunities I had in front of me.